Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to 10 News at 2, streaming live from the Wes Rucker podcast studio at WBIR. We are so glad you're with us today. I'm Robin Wilhoit. This is what we have coming up. A new development in a case that we have been following for more than a year now. It surrounds a former Knox County employee. He was in court today and pleaded guilty. We're going to get into that case and what has played out over the last year in his case. Plus, an aging, popular shopping center in North Knoxville is going to be getting a facelift in the near future. Libby Cunningham is here. She's going to talk about that. Coming to the Broadway Shopping Center. Looking forward to our discussion, Libby. And Cassie Nall is with us to talk about the weather. But before we dig into that, and planting, which I'm itching to do. We do have some breaking news we want to talk about. Within the last hour, this breaking, we learned that President Donald Trump has fired Attorney General Pam Bondi. Bondi, of course, overseeing firings of many career employees in the Department of Justice. She also took aggressive action to investigate the president's enemies. The firing also comes after months of scrutiny over the DOJ's handling of files related to Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking investigation. We have much more on this right now at WBIR.com and on the 10 News app. And with that, we want to bring it back here to Knoxville and Cassie Nall to talk about what is just a glorious day in East Tennessee. It's warm, and I can't keep saying this. I'm like this broken record. You are too.
Yeah.
And you have the forecast.
Yeah, we flipped kind of straight from cold in February.
Yes.
March was so warm that now we've moved into April. Highs in the low 80s are close to record highs each day right now, and we're kind of getting used to it. But of course, everybody with this warm weather wants to do some planting. And I don't blame them.
Myself included. Let's talk about when and how we can do this.
We still say you should wait until after tax day to be extra safe. And I know a lot of folks are like, well, it's already warm. Climatology says that we still can get cold weather even if we've already had a warm start to spring.
And that is April 15th, right?
April 15th, tax day. So the average last freeze, so temperatures at or below 32 degrees, happens around April 1st.
Okay.
It can be, though, as late as early May. As you can see on the bottom left of that graphic, the latest freeze that we've had was May 4th.
Of 1986, so it's been a hot minute.
It's been a while. So most of them happen by around April 1st. Now, frost is a different story. That can be temperatures 33 to 36 degrees. That typically happens, our last one, by about April 14th. So that's why we say tax day. But again, it can happen in May, so you just got to be really careful and pay attention to the forecast. Something that's different this year, we had this last year as well. It's new with the National Weather Service. They have gotten together across the state, and they've set a standard for dates for when they're going to issue frost and freeze products. So we could have a frost or a freeze the rest of this month, and we would not have a product issued for it, a frost advisory or freeze warning, because they're only going to issue those between May 1st and September 30th in an effort to help only highlight the most anomalous happenings of that. And right now, we don't have any frost or freeze in the forecast, but early, or I should say by midweek next week, we might watch for some patchy frost in our northern areas.
Word to the wise, don't start planning until April 14th, 15th.
Yes.
All right. Cassie Nall, as always, we appreciate you. We turn now to 10 News reporter Libby Cunningham to talk about a story that you'll be bringing us today on 10 News at 5 and 6. You've paid a visit to the Knoxville Broadway Shopping Center on Broadway here in North Knoxville, if I can get that all straight. It has been a well-loved, well-visited shopping center for a long time, and it's showing that wear and tear.
It is. So a development company out of Washington, D.C. has purchased it, and they have some big plans for it. So they had released some renderings on their website a little bit ago, and they actually sent me some updated ones today. But the idea is to create like a community space. So of course, it's still going to be a shopping center, but they want to host community events there. They want to give the facades there a facelift. They're going to add some art like murals, and the goal is to also bring in some new tenants. So there are a decent amount of businesses there, and they are all different types of businesses. There's a tattoo parlor, there's a gun store, there's a Goodwill, there's several clothing stores, 2 grocery stores.
Yeah, that anchor is the Kroger.
Dollar General is another anchor that they consider. There's also a Save-A-Lot. They have all different types of things there. They also have a location of Baloo Drugstore, a beloved local pharmacy. And I just spoke to someone today who is opening a hoagie shop there sometime this month.
So lots to look forward to there. Now, historically, there have been situations that have played out in that shopping center, crimes that have happened there. They are addressing this too going forward, right?
They are addressing this, and when I spoke to the developer on the phone earlier today, he brought up himself first that they have hired a security firm. They want to make sure that people feel safe and comfortable there because there have been some instances there of crimes, even recently, right? So you want to make sure that people feel safe as you are changing an area around.
What was the vibe you were getting when you were talking to folks who had been longtime tenants there?
Every single person that I talked to, a lot of people, of course, when we see viewers out in the field are always so happy to come up and say hi, but they are ready to see a change there. They still patronize the businesses there. I spoke to a worker at Blue Drugs who has lived in this area forever. She remembers when Woolworths was there. The owner of the new hoagie shop remembers when Woolworths was there. And also, I think there was a Big Lots there. This is where they went and hung out when he was in high school. They are ready to see the change. They would like to see things cleaned up a little bit, as they put it. And they want it to become a community hub again, especially because it is an area that, you know, kids can walk to, hang out at, patronize businesses, those types of things.
Let's talk about that. We drive it every day because we are just down the road.
We're there all the time.
But this really is a big part of that community. Fulton High School.
Right there.
Right across the street. So it is essential in that community, isn't it?
It is. And you see, too, you know, the businesses across the street, La Pinata, the Mexican restaurant. You want to go there after work, you know you're waiting for a table. The Time Out Deli is right there across the street. It's an area where people are already patronizing businesses. That Taco Bell will sometimes have a line out into the street, right? So it just is a perfect place, I think, for a change to happen.
I know you're still getting more information about the plan going forward. Do we have like a price tag on this? Do we know when this could be done that people can see the full effect of what they, or is it still?
It's still
yet to be
in
determined?
progress.
Yes.
What I will say, though, is that there are already people working on things. So when you drive past, it has its kind of iconic green awnings. Those colors may be changing. There is not a final color scheme, not a final look, nothing set in stone, but they've already started to do small things. They've replaced the roofs on all of the buildings. They have also started to paint some areas as well. So I think this is sort of a work in progress thing with no true end date just yet, but they're hopeful within, you know, a couple of years that this will be a completely revamped area.
It's going to be fun for us, isn't it? Driving by, just to keep an eye on this.
Taco Bell.
Cassie, I'm going to throw you in here because you pass it as well. We all do. And I mean, it's definitely a fixture in our community. So we're all going to be gauging the progress.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it daily and keep everybody up to date.
That's right. That's right. This hoagie shop looks really good, so that might be a lunchtime thing.
This is another lunch option for us.
And did you get a preview of?
I did get a preview of the menu. He's going to be doing steamed sandwiches, and he's also going to be doing some super fun hot dogs. His grandmother owned a store at Glenwood and 6th Street.
Oh my!
Back in the day. And so he is just kind of bringing it back, and coming back to his old neighborhood was really important to him because he grew up coming to the shopping center. A lot of great stories to come out of this 100%. Story. All right, Libby, Cassie, thank you very much. Coming up, we will take you to court where a former Knox County employee pleaded guilty to misuse of property, county property, his case, and the past involving this case right after this.
A former employee of the Knox County Trustee's office was in court this morning and pleaded guilty to 1 count of official misconduct involving the use of a county vehicle. Also in court today, WBIR reporter Ellis Rold and investigative producer John North. Thank you both for being here. Let's get into the court proceeding today, but there is a bigger story beyond that. Let's bring us up to date today.
Right. So we had what happened today, this morning, and then what's been going on behind the scenes that Ellis and I have been covering for about a year now. This morning, what happened is that Jason Dobbins, who used to be, he was hired as a manager by Trustee Justin Biggs in, I think, September of 2024, right after, I believe that's correct. Anyway, it was a couple years ago, right after Justin got elected. He was hired to be a manager in the office. But what happened is then there was an internal investigation in Knox County that showed some usage of personal time of county leased vehicles, and investigators thought Dobbins had been doing some of that. And then also there was separately a comptroller's investigation which looked into that, but also looked into whether Dobbins had used some insider knowledge, if you will, about real estate sales with somebody else for personal profit. So a grand jury had indicted him, I think last summer.
August, yeah.
Yeah. On 2 counts of official misconduct, which is the lowest level of felony. It's a Class E felony. I think the punishment is like 1 to 6. I think that's correct. 1 to 6 or 2 to 6 years. And we've been sort of watching that case go through the court system. This morning, Dobbins entered a guilty plea to 1 count of official misconduct, which dealt with the usage of county leased vehicles. And that was a deal that was worked out by Blount County prosecutors. There had clearly been discussions. Blount County was handling the case because Knox County got out of it. And the resolution was he pleaded guilty. He's getting diversion, which means that conviction is held in abeyance. It's for 2 years. He'll be on unsupervised probation. And if he is good, if he behaves and picks up no other charges during that time period, then it gets dismissed and it can essentially go away.
Ellis, talk about what it was like in the courtroom today. Was it business, very business-oriented, or was there any kind of emotion that you could see from any of the people involved?
It was quick, honestly.
Okay, like how quick?
Quick, like 10 minutes.
Oh,
maybe.
very quick, in fact.
Yeah,
Yes.
Start and stop. Pretty straightforward, honestly.
Yeah.
I think for me, having covered this last summer and looking at the allegations within the trustee's office, with Dobbins, what we really focused on a lot was the 2 pieces of property in South Knox County that he had essentially flipped. He bought them at a tax sale, him and another man, for about $500 a piece, and then flipped them for $60,000 a piece, about. So that was what we focused a lot of our reporting on when it came to Dobbins last summer. And then I thought it was interesting in the courtroom today, as part of the deal, that charge was dismissed and they focused more so on the vehicles. So,
and let's go back in time, because this issue arose through, I guess, a concern to the auditor in the county about maybe some misuse. This really originated from that, right?
Right. There was a internal tip, or a tip received, and then Knox County Internal Audit proceeded to look into it and started finding some things that verified that tip. They did their own investigation. I think it was done by late 2024, but then there were also conversations with the state comptroller's office, which obviously looks into public agencies and I think even nonprofits that have some public money involved across the state, and is very active. And we've done lots of reporting about other comptrollers' investigations. There are some that are still perhaps going on right now involving Knox County and other East Tennessee counties. They looked into it themselves separately. Often the comptroller's office will be talking to the local prosecutors, just sort of comparing notes in terms of what they're finding. That helps the prosecution to decide whether there's a criminal case or this is more of a sort of an error or kind of a bureaucracy that's not being appropriately followed. It just kind of depends on the depth of what they're looking into.
Were there any other people within the department who were looked at during this process other than Jason Dobbins?
Well, Justin Biggs,
Justin
of
Biggs,
course,
the trustee.
but wasn't charged.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you want to talk about Ballard a little
Yeah,
bit,
it's
different. But
it's important, as Ellis says,
Yes.
that while the comptroller's office spent multiple days in the city-county building looking at Biggs's operation and gathering information, he ultimately was not charged, was not named specifically in the resulting comptroller's report, but the office was referenced, and we all know who the office holder is. It's Justin Biggs. He's running for re-election, and he's on the May 5 primary ballot. But there were other employees who were questioned. This is one of the head-scratching wrinkles about this case that makes me sort of chuckle and go, okay. There were discussions. First, Biggs wanted these trucks to lease. He has a field program where he can go out and he wants to help people out in the community. Nice idea. And he wanted to lease these, I believe it's 6 trucks.
Chevy trucks, yeah.
Also, when this was being discussed, Knox County leaders were like, we want to increase monitoring on county and county-leased vehicles. There were some at the time, and they wanted to increase it. And they said at the time, we will put GPS tracking on these trucks. Well, the investigation showed still some employees were using these vehicles for personal business, even though everybody had said, no, you were going to put GPS trackers on these vehicles. You know that, right?
And yeah, and that was the interesting part. I think we had a lot of conversations about that last summer. You know, the employees were well aware that their location, the time they would get to a
You
location,
assume
all
they
of
were.
that, right, were being monitored, and we still had this come out.
So what specifically did Jason Dobbins use, or where did he go when it came to using these vehicles
The
that
prosecution
were flagged?
announced that.
Yeah.
You tell them.
We mentioned, or they mentioned that a little bit this morning. A few trips to and from the gym in the morning, some errands on the weekends, so obviously not during working hours, and then a weekend trip to Bristol was also
Virginia.
mentioned this morning. So obviously outside of the realm of going to and from work or to and from an assignment, I guess, at work.
We got the vehicle tracking data for those 6 vehicles about a year ago. New Sentinel also was working on it. Going to give them credit. They were first dogging this story and were breaking it. As they were breaking it, Biggs announced that he was firing an employee, turned out to be Dobbins, but we had the logs, and you could see particular vehicles and where they were in terms of the addresses, like Bristol, Virginia showed up, I think, around Thanksgiving of 2024 that weekend. And you could see where some of these were, and you looked at them, and I looked at them. If you knew, like, where employees lived,
Right.
or if you knew where employees had family, or that South Knoxville, those 2
Yes.
properties, if you
They had
looked at
gone
that,
there, yeah.
you could see that one of those vehicles had gone down there.
Right.
So
And of course, it's not going to say, you know, in the massive amount of data that we got, it didn't ever say, you know, this truck
Correct.
was used by Dobbins
Correct.
and went to his house. You just saw the line with like a, I guess, an identification number for the trucks and then a list of addresses. But you can, you know, deduce from that,
yeah,
like John was
you can
saying.
figure it out.
You requested all these records. Was it easily accessible? I mean, was there any pushback in getting that information? How long did it take?
No, I mean, first of all, Knox County is pretty great to work with in terms of releasing public records when they can, if they can. We rarely have a problem with Knox County. There are some other agencies, candidly, in East Tennessee that we do have to kind of fight and we have to nag. Some Knox County governmental entities where it can be a pain in the you-know-what to get that stuff. But Knox County was fine. That the mayor's office was well run.
I have such respect for the two of you because you are continually requesting records, whether it be from the local, state, and beyond. And that is a lot of work.
But we're not the only ones. You know, it's really interesting, Robin. Actually, I mean, press organizations ask a lot for records, but private citizens also make a lot of requests, and we sometimes bump up against those because, like, we'll contact the sheriff's office. I'm getting off track here, but maybe people may find it interesting.
Sure.
The public is absolutely entitled to ask for documents, but you know, sometimes, like with the sheriff's office, there's a long line of people asking for documents, and we have to get in that line in terms of order of play.
Next.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Bueller.
This records request specifically, like we talked about, was a giant Excel sheet.
Yeah.
And you just kind of had to scroll through. I mean, it would amount to probably thousands of pages.
And that's basically
the addresses.
That's taking your day. I mean,
several
your
days.
At least.
To just go through this massive amount and to identify this is important, this is, and then connecting the dots.
Right.
That's what I always want folks to understand, you know, when it comes to journalism reporting. Yes, you're talking to people, you're getting the information, but so much of it is based on documents and records that we are accessing to make the story complete. And it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay, as a result of this, have there been any changes that you're aware of in the trustees department as a result?
Wow.
They still have the GPS, or did they get rid of it?
They still have the trucks.
They still have them.
Yeah.
Some aren't being used
Yeah, no,
as much.
We've intermittently checked. We've intermittently checked on those trucks after the trucks face such scrutiny by us and the paper and other entities.
I recall you all being on the hunt for the trucks
Yeah,
for a while.
we did. We found some of them over at the what they call the old Sears building on Central Street. But again, because the GPS is there, I can call the folks over in the county and say, can you tell me how often these vehicles are being used? And I think a few weeks ago when we had the trustees candidates on Inside Tennessee, I had called the county and said, what's going on with the trucks? And one of them hadn't been driven since November. And remember, that's county taxpayer money that's going for that.
And that's the interesting part of this story when you're talking about the trucks. These are expensive vehicles. The lease payment is about $1,000, $1,200 bucks a month per truck.
Per truck. So we're talking 6 trucks.
Yes. And they're
$1,000,
very
$6,000,
nice,
yes.
Large vehicles.
Silverados, if I'm remembering
And
correctly.
so, you know, obviously in the comptroller's report, it revealed that some trucks were being used for personal use. But then we also found later that then some trucks weren't being used, like John said, since November. So it's kind of that fine line of if they are paying for them, the taxpayers are paying for them, should they be utilized?
I think the trustee said something on Inside Tennessee about he wanted to go to a smaller vehicle with at least one of those. But I don't know. I mean, you know, if he doesn't win in May, I'll be interested to see if whoever the winner is decides I'm getting rid of those trucks and we don't need those leases anymore.
Well, and that is what happens in reporting. One story leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Other stories to maybe come from this, would you say?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. Completely separate from the trustee's office, but indicted essentially at the same time, is the property assessor who, Phil Ballard, who authorities say was essentially double dipping in terms of what he was doing after he got elected in 2024. You want to explain that?
So county employees, or in Phil Ballard's case, they can take a, I guess, what would that be called? It's an allowance.
You get an allowance, basically. It's a reimbursement.
Right. They can reimburse you for using your own vehicle. He took the allowance,
Plus.
but was also using a county vehicle.
Double dipping?
Right.
Essentially?
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
So there's been some back and forth with that. And he's also said, you know, once I realized, or once I, you know, this was brought to my attention, he paid it back, but
It's separate from Big's office, but he is the office holder, and he is charged with official misconduct, and that case is next in court in late May.
And these are situations that come to light when audits and people call in tips that have to be looked into, and that is the process of us reporting on what is found, for sure. All right. Thank you both so much for filling us in and taking us beyond, and we're looking forward to the stories that will follow. Ellis,
Thank you.
John, thank you very much, and stay with us. We'll be right back. We have lots more news and weather, of course, coming up later today on 10 News. Again, as we mentioned at the top of this newscast, President Trump has fired Pam Bondi as the U.S. Attorney. If you'd like to learn more about that right now, head over to WBIR.com. But closer to home, the Knox County District Attorney General says a 20-year-old man is a safety risk. This is an update on a story we've been telling you about since last week. Leaders say he entered 3 different Knox County schools in the Hardin Valley area on one single day without permission. Daniel, our producer, those schools, run them down for us, if you will.
Yeah, I'm looking at our article on WBIR.com. Yeah. On March 16th, he entered bypassed security protocols at 3 different schools: Hardin Valley Academy, Hardin Valley Middle School, and Hardin Valley Elementary School.
That's exactly right. As you mentioned, bypassed the safety protocols, provided false justification apparently to staff, as we have reported, and wandered through classrooms. Authorities say he falsely identified himself as a student or a visitor. Right now, we are standing by to hear from Knox County School Superintendent John Ryswick. He is set to comment on this case, and we will be carrying his remarks live right here, streaming on WBIR+. Once again, much more news starting today at 4 o'clock on 10 About Town, and then 10 News at 5 and 6. I will see you then. Have a great afternoon, and once again, live coverage from Knox County School Superintendent John Ryswick coming up in a matter of minutes.